Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Prep Life Podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Enger. And today I am joined by the legend, Chris Nicole.
Hey
And
everybody.
yeah, and she is down in sunny Florida. And we are doing our fifth anniversary podcast.
Yeah, happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy anniversary to you as well. And it was 5 years ago in September that we
hmm
were down in Florida, and you're down there now. Which part of Florida are you in right now?
We're in like Boynton Beach, so east south-ish. I think it's like
Okay.
an hour from Miami or somewhere around there.
Oh, okay. So yeah, she's nice and warm. She just got the air conditioning fixed, 90-degree weather. She's feeling the heat. It's a little
Yeah, we
toasty
have
down
some air
there.
flow. Yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to just celebrate this last 5 years, and I really wanted to. I was so appreciative that you decided to do this with me because I just feel like when we started this podcast, I literally had zero expectations for like anyone even listening. I thought maybe my client Shelly would listen and that would be it.
But
um,
she did.
she did. Yeah. And we were just like, you know what? It's worth it if we have at least one listener or if we can like even just help like our clients. So that was kind of the
Thank you.
mission with starting this. I know for me, it was more about like I had made so many mistakes in the industry throughout the years of like different trials, tribulations, and so I just wanted other people to kind of like hear some things that I've done wrong and like hopefully they could, you know, not make the same type of mistakes and stuff like that. That was kind of my mission. I think we're on the same page with that one, but did you want to share anything about like your heart with this podcast?
Yeah, I think the real talk aspect is so important because everywhere we look around in bodybuilding, it's lots of highlights. And so like having a outlet where you can share like the things that suck or the like goofy mistakes or the stuff you never expected, I think brings it down to a level where people can really connect. And that's what I feel like this podcast has helped do is create that community where people feel included. And that was like piggybacking off what you said, that was something that I like foresaw, with people listening as it's for the listeners always.
Yeah.
So yeah, just reaching people in a different capacity and just keeping it like down to earth, I think it's unique in this sport. So
Yeah, I felt like, at the time when we started, now there's a lot of podcasts with different prep series and things like that. But at the time I felt like it was a little bit of a pain point. And there weren't that many podcasts because I really had gotten
yeah.
into Lane Norton and like Lauren Conlin and Paul Ravello used to have a podcast called what is it called? Why am I
uh,
blanking? There.
Redefine healthy.
Yeah, redefine healthy radio. Yeah, and I felt like they did such a good job, and I just wanted to, I was always searching for content and wanting to like learn while I'm doing cardio and while I'm in my car and stuff like that. So that was one of the reasons why, just to educate, and then also kind of like what we learned along the way. Like I felt like it was, and I'm probably going to get to this later when we talk about favorite parts, but I felt like it was kind of like an audio diary of our lives for like
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So we just kind of like shared the good, the bad, the ugly. And yeah, so we wanted to talk about like what went into making the show just to celebrate. And I also wanted to thank everybody for listening. We've had 500,000 downloads. So definitely unexpected. And it's been listened to in over 100 countries. And I had like, I literally had very like humble like reasons for starting this. And that's why we both didn't want to do like any ads or anything because we weren't doing it to like, you know, monetize or anything like that. It was just really to like add value and pay it forward, like what the industry's done for us, I think. I mean, I don't want to speak for you.
Yes. No, I agree completely. And I like that you've kept to that over 5 years. So that's great.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna get into everything that went into making the show. So um So not to say that this podcast is ending, because it's not. I'm going to continue on.
Great.
But we changed a lot over the 5 years. Um, so when we first started out, I had no clue how to podcast. Like there wasn't like a just like mentorship program or anything like that that you could really go through. So I literally went to Guitar Store, the Guitar Center, and I was so lucky I found a guy that knew actually what he was doing. He completely took over my computer and made like this downloadable free software called Reaper. And then I bought 2 microphones, 2 stands. Not that we ever used them more than I think twice. I don't know why I bought 2 microphones. I think I was thinking we
Just
were
in
gonna like live next door or something. Um, luckily, he also had the foresight to give me a plug for a phone.
case.
So I had that jack too. And then he introduced me to Podbean, which is like a platform that you can host your RS feed on that. So all those were learning curves. I literally am one of those people that I want to bring as much value as possible. I want it to obviously be quality and calculated, but sometimes I fail forward and I just call it messy progress because sometimes you just need to take action, when you see something happening. And so, I mean, I had my friend K Ray design our logo. And I think the hardest part about podcasting, and I will tell you this, I did a second one with Lee Marie, Balanced
Yeah.
Bodybuilding Radio. And I told her, I was like, all right, you're going to be in charge of like getting this together. I said, your biggest challenge, and I just want to predict this, it's going to be getting the logo the right size to meet Apple's criteria. Literally, it took her weeks. And same with us too. I think I finally found somebody on my husband's like marketing team to get the logo the right size. So that is a really hard thing. Definitely Google it. There's YouTube videos and things like that, but it's hard to get the digital design in that like size. I don't know. You probably had an easier time because you have a graphic design background. So you've just recently started a podcast as
Well,
well.
yeah, and there's like new like within 5 years
Yeah,
because
a lot changes.
exactly there's a lot more options now in
Yes.
like creating things. So yeah, you definitely went through the growing pains of the, the podcasting with that.
Well, this is one of the mistakes. So we were going to go through like our favorites and our mistakes, but I figured things would just flow organically when we talk.
Yeah.
Because one of my other favorite things about this podcast is that it's always kind of like girl talk between the two of us. I love that part about us meeting. But I remember, so we had done the first episode at your pro debut at the Hurricane Pro. So we had like the headphones, the microphones, and then our second podcast, I think even like, and listeners will probably know because I know we've gotten so many reviews, like critiques on the audio. But there were the first couple ones. I forgot that I had the plug for the phone. So I put the microphone up to my phone, put it on speaker.
Oh.
And now, I mean, this year I have used Zoom. I hope, and you can comment in the YouTube video below because now we're on YouTube with videos. And then, so we've upgraded this year to Zoom Pro finally, and it made, I think, a huge difference in the audio. And then also now we can do video. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of rambled on a little bit right there, but what are your
No,
thoughts?
that's great. People like watching too, so it's evolved. So if you guys are listening, check it out on YouTube as well,
Yeah.
um, because you do. There are different things when you're watching video with people communicating.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we would love to hear like what your favorite episodes were over the years. If you had a favorite, so feel free to put that in the comments below or add that to like a review or something if you want. But let's start with you on your, so I've already told like multiple of my favorites, and then one of my big mistakes was the audio. So what are some struggles or mistakes that you had?
Okay. Well, I think my biggest mistakes were trying to find good recording spots with my phone. So
Yes, the recording
throughout,
studio.
yeah, my recording studio changed quite often. It was 99% of the time in my car, because I had lived in different spots for those 5 years, and a lot of those areas did not have good cell service. So I would have to like drive to like a parking lot or something like that and try and make sure that there was not a lot of traffic or there wasn't like a delivery truck delivering to a store. Like I had recorded in spots in Virginia where I had to drive like down a huge mountain to find some recording spots. So there was a lot of trial and error because sometimes the audio would be fine, and then like halfway through, my voice would like cut out, and Amy would have to like jump in and interpret what was happening. So those I think were the biggest ones. The worst was in the summertime because I would turn my car off. I didn't want to like waste my gas, and it'd be very hot in my car. It was like a sauna recording studio. But all for the glory, all for the listeners. It was totally worth it.
She
And
detox.
yeah,
It was her sauna time.
exactly. Yeah. So just finding some of those like special like areas, and like even like moving to a different state, there's been times where I told Amy like, hang on, I have to go into the corner, and I'd sit in like the corner of the room against the wall. But uh it I don't know, it was like you said, like messy progress, a fun way to kind of just collaborate together and trying to reach people, even if it meant that we were a little bit uncomfortable. So yeah, I mean, those were probably most of the things that I had to like juggle while we were recording, and they're like minor compared to like the outcome. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, everybody appreciates your struggles and you being able to do that. We really appreciate that so much. And
Yeah.
thank you, those of you that were patient with our audio struggles.
Yes.
We tried to get better throughout. At one point, I think I figured out how to like turn down the volume of the microphone on your end and then turn mine up because somehow like the the volume setting was disproportionate. So like the phone getting plugged in for some reason that made your side of things way more loud. And so thank you those of you that were patient with us. We appreciate that. um,
Yes. Yeah.
so okay, so what were some of your favorite parts or like episodes that you really enjoyed throughout the years?
Yeah, so I did like recapping like events and stuff that we went to together, whether it was like the Olympia or team shows, and just kind of talking about that experience. It kind of helped me like relive it and pull out, because so stuff like that happens and it feels like a blur. So it was a nice way, like you said, to kind of like document our experience, but also like to pull out the key points that we felt were um you know, that would
Helpful.
provide benefit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that would provide benefit, or stuff that we found like meaningful. So that was a lot of fun. And I also enjoyed a lot of the interviews that we did. Like interviewing Casey DeLong in person was pretty cool. Just to kind of like hear her story and ask her questions, and she's just a very inspiring person. So that was neat. And then another interview that I felt was like very memorable is the times that we've interviewed Bill Campbell, which I'm sure that's a favorite of yours too. Just feeling like I'm in
Yeah,
school
absolutely.
and like, wait, I have another question, being able to ask him anything. That was a lot of fun. So yeah,
Yeah, he's
you
so
said
knowledgeable. Yeah, it was cool to go through his research. It really that was one thing I liked too, is like when we would go through research, even if it wasn't with him, we'd find a study that kind of applied to bodybuilding because there are few and far between other than his lab. And
yeah,
just kind of like dissect it and try to we always would get these lists. Like I feel like we were like the top 10 queens on different things, but then we like change them into the prep life. So I really like
yeah,
doing that. So we'd get some generic like Gen Pop list and we'd be like, all right, this is how this one we can apply that to prep life and blah blah blah. And
yeah.
kind of like give our own anecdotal of like our experiences as a coach and as an athlete. So
Yeah, I do feel like the podcast, like it kind of forced uh like continued education just as a like a professional in the sport. Because I mean, you have a background in teaching, so like it was kind of like a new thing for me to do like research and come up with a way to present it. And it was cool having a partner to be able to like collect information, grow as a professional, and then share it with people. That's a specific skill. So the podcast was a good opportunity for that too.
Yeah, I feel like we both helped each other in times of I don't know the way to word this, but like sometimes like I would be really busy with like different things that were going on, and sometimes you would be really busy in your season of life. Like I remember you were in school at one point, like full-time
Yeah.
student, and
Yeah.
so we kind of like sometimes like we'd like tag team, like, okay, you take the research for this week, and then we kind of like add things in and stuff like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed that as well. You did a really good job with all of that.
No, thanks.
So yeah, those are, I mean, really just, going through all the triumphs and tribulations and all that stuff is just really like my main favorite part. Were there any other like mistakes or favorite parts that you can think of?
Hmm. Well, I would say I'm actually pretty impressed because there are still no editing for the Prep Life podcast.
Yeah, that is
Like
true.
that's a huge accomplishment, especially like there was a lot of grace, I think, with listeners too. Like there were plenty
Yeah,
of times where I like
dogs
misspoke and said some
barking.
words. Yeah. And I'd be like, wait a second. Or I like miss my spot on the notes and say something that was like completely like out of context for the topic we were talking about. But I think together we kind of like pulled it together at different spots. And
Yeah,
I think that the listeners appreciated as well that we're real people. Like I'm not gonna pretend to like know everything. We're gonna try our best to share, but yeah, it's a unique experience putting together a production like this. uh, and it's always like so awkward in the beginning. I felt like so uncomfortable in the beginning, just
yeah,
like talk, like what do you say, and you have to constantly talk. But then the more you do it and the more you don't, you just kind of like get in the zone. um, it
absolutely.
becomes, I think, more natural. So
Yeah, I think too it was different with that transition over to video as well, because I would always be like in my dungeon basement with my dinosaur computer because I didn't know
yeah.
how to download that software on any of my newer computers. So
Yeah.
when I had to turn on my computer, I'm like, we'd have our weekly talk like before the podcast, and then I feel like, okay, let me wait for this dinosaur while I like crank the side of my computer to get it to work. It would take like 5 minutes for that thing to boot up. It's still down there, like all set up, and I'm so glad that I'm using my new computer now with Zoom. It makes it
Good.
so much easier.
I
But
remember you give me updates. You're like,
yeah,
it's buffering. And we
yeah.
just sit there. It's still buffering.
Well, I felt like you spoke about Casey DeLong. We almost lost her so we literally interviewed her right as she stepped off stage from the Olympia, and she was like with her family and like ready to eat. You know how you are when you're a competitor. And I felt so bad because like my stupid computer wouldn't connect to the internet, and like it was so slow. And she's like, "Is this ready?" She's like, "I'm gonna go over to the taco bar, then I'm gonna come back." And I'm like, "Nope, still not ready." And she's like, "All right." Like, I need to get to Maggiano's. Let's get this going. So I felt bad, but
You made
it
it.
all worked out.
The computer made it. Yeah.
The computer made it right at the buzzer.
You know, sweat, but that's okay.
We're professional over here. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But
So other than that, I mean, are there any other things that you feel like changed over the years, like in terms of like growing or evolving or perfecting and refining? I want to cringe
hmm,
every time I hear like the first couple of episodes. You can't really find them on Apple because you can only find like the last two. Every once in a while, I'll just go back to like remember the old times, and I'm like, oh yeah, this was hard to listen to because it was so like the audio was just not good, and
yeah. And I would be afraid to laugh because if I would laugh,
it would be so loud.
oh my gosh. So yeah, that was a hard thing for me. I didn't like, and I still don't like going back and listening to I don't like hearing my own voice. So like hearing old episodes, especially when you're uncomfortable, like people can tell when you're talking and you're a little bit like
Yeah,
uneasy.
yeah.
Uh there's growing pains too, but
But you
I
were
don't
meant
know.
for this. Yeah, I wanted you to get on today just because I wanted everybody to kind of, and if you're okay with this, listeners, I would love for you guys to just spread some love to Chris and send her, some messages, and just thank her for her time, on the podcast, because it's just really meant a lot to me that you've been a part of this with me. And, I just really appreciate your heart, and you're such a caring person. And it's so evident with everything that you've done. And I mean, it's hours. Like, I remember in the beginning, people would be like, it's okay if you go more than 30 minutes. And I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth. Like, literally, we did it every single week. I think because I didn't have to edit, I just
Mhm.
like put it up right as soon as we record, and it was 30 minutes. And my old software would like time it. So I knew exactly when it was coming to 30 minutes. And like, it's a lot of research and to come up with, I mean, we're on like, the last episode I did was with Gary Udit. And that I think was 261. Um,
Wow.
and it's so funny because we made this non-explicit, because in the beginning, like, my kids were really young, and I always hated like having a podcast on in the car, like when they were listening, and people would be like cussing like crazy. So I'm like, okay, we need to make this non-explicit. And it was so funny because Gary Udit cussed on the last podcast, and the only other person that's cussed is Sandy Williamson. I didn't even
Well, there
think.
you go.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't edit it out. But anyway,
It
just a
touches the
memory that was random. But
right. Oh
so,
my gosh.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I
No.
just wanted to like give everybody the opportunity to thank you. So I'm sure they already follow you, but can you like share your Instagram handle so they can maybe like tag you on their story if they listen to this, and tell you how much they appreciate like your years of dedication, because you put so much into this. And, if you write a review, I will, screenshot it. That was another thing we used to do that I always thought was fun. Every once in a while I would read through the reviews, and I just like, if I was having a bad day or something. And so thank you, listeners, for cheering us up. And I would send Chris like screenshots and warm fuzzies. And, um I don't know. I
Yeah.
just always like it. It definitely made it like, because sometimes in a podcast you don't get that feedback like immediately. Um, it's not like a YouTube where they comment. And so for like 4 years, we were just doing audio. And so I just really appreciate all of the reviews that you guys sent and things. Your words mean a ton, and like the DMs that we've had. And then after a while, like once it started getting traction, like we'd talk to people at shows and they'd come up to us. And I think one time at Universe, we were in the elevator and we were talking, and like somebody turned to me and they were like, "Oh my gosh, are you Amy here?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I
Oh,
am here."
yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I wanted to say like thank you to you, and I want to give everybody an opportunity to say the
Yeah.
same.
Well, thank you for the compliment and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this collaboration. It is a huge honor. And like again, it's an opportunity for me to grow in so many ways. And I just always think those types of things are a gift. So I appreciated all the work that you poured into it. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work not knowing if it's really doing anything, especially like in the beginning. You don't know if you're
In the
reaching
beginning,
people, you
it's
don't
hard.
know. Yeah, it's just kind of you're going in blind and you're just like crossing your fingers hoping that you're making a difference. So anybody writing reviews or continuing to support like an outlet that they find that they get value from, that's huge for like podcasters. So yeah, if you love the prep play, please subscribe, continue to write reviews, and just support the people that are behind it making that content for you, because there is no paycheck. There's no
No,
paycheck.
no,
Uh,
there's only costs. You have to like
yes,
have space on Podbean and pay for that and pay for the equipment. And yeah,
yes.
so
If anything, it's an investment for sure.
yeah,
So yeah,
but it's worth
um,
it.
yeah, I agree, and I appreciate all the listeners because a podcast is not anything if no one's listening. So having you guys across the world, and that was like a cool thing to hear, like, oh, we have people in this country, and like that's incredible to think that there's people all over the world listening to you talk. Also a little intimidating, but that's okay.
Yeah,
It's a
try not to think
it's
about
a
it.
huge honor. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for giving us a chance to share, and also for giving us feedback, and just for being part of the community, because I feel like the Prep Life has brought people together in a kind of unique way, and there's a special community of listeners that
Yeah,
the
and one thing I didn't say about my favorite is I always loved our Q&As, and that 100% comes from the listeners. Those, whenever we knew what you guys wanted to hear, that really like filled our cup to hear like, okay, they want to hear about this. And it was reassuring when you're kind of, you feel like you're talking to like an abyss of nothingness while you're sitting in your basement every Tuesday.
yeah,
But or in your car wandering
yes,
wild. So, but
yeah, no,
anyways, yeah.
yeah, it does make a difference. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for everybody that's supported me being on this podcast platform. It's a huge honor. And yeah, I'm still around. So I'm Chris Nicole underscore IFBB Pro on Instagram. So anybody that wants to stay connected, I would love that. But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Amy, for the opportunity. It's been a really cool journey.
Yeah. Thank you for everything. And sorry, I went on another tangent. So I'm glad you remembered to say our Instagram handle. I'll definitely put it in the show notes as
Perfect.
well.
Thank you.
And if
Yeah.
you listen to the episode and you want to tag us on your story, you can find us at Prep Life Podcast or at Glam Girl Bikini. And you can apply for the team at glamgirlbikini.com and hit the get started button. Thanks for listening, everyone. Happy 5th year anniversary.
Happy anniversary.